Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business podcast covering all things tech, engineering, innovation and motorsport. Hosted by me, Chris Broome.
And me, Fiona Pawley. This is a series of unscripted conversations with leading business owners and high-tech talent, talking about their experiences within the Silverstone and motorsport business communities. Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business podcast focused on high-tech, innovation and motorsport. I'm your host, Fiona Pawley, and today we have got James Densley, Chief Technical Director for TDF. James, welcome to Inside Silverstone. Nice to see you.
Hey Fiona, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So we are very old friends, actually, James and I. I'm going to confess to our listeners who are tuning in. But before we get into all of the old gossip that we used to kind of get up to, do you want to introduce yourself and let us know what TDF does?
Yeah, as you said, I'm James Densley, Chief Technical Director here at TDF. And we are looking at motorsport in a slightly different way. So we re-engineer and rework F1 cars primarily, but we do a whole host of other stuff, culminating in what we class as the TDF1 program, which is a fully bespoke, customizable F1 car tailored to whatever the owner wants, that raced in Grand Prix, comes with all the history, but it's got a whole host of our engineering in it.
Tell me a little bit about your current role and what does that entail?
Spinning many plates at the moment. We're still quite a small firm doing a lot of things, but we're doing, realistically, my role at the moment spans everything from the technical side on the cars and where we're going and the projects and how we're going to go about those, liaising a lot with the clients and working what is best for them from a technical aspect, and what is achievable, what's not achievable, all the way through to media events. I do some of the test driving in the cars, but yeah, primarily I'm working on the business building side, so partnerships, and how we go about creating the product. We do a lot in-house, but there are also a lot of things that we look to other businesses to do, so working with them closely to make sure we get an end product out on time and as we said it would be.
I mean, it sounds like you're spinning lots of plates, like you said. So in my layman's terms, we've got the TDF1, which is an example behind you. What have we got going on there? What's that?
So this little kiddo, all the cars that are in the TDF1 program come from the teams. They've raced in Grand Prix. They've all got Grand Prix history. So
they're all actual Formula One cars that have been on tracks and been in races.
Yep, absolutely. So this car behind it is a Perez car. Not having the greatest of times at the moment, but so this car is how it comes from the team, and we use it here in sort of our suite to show people this is the raw form that they come in, and then out in the workshop we turn them into the vision of the owner, so they can go through that whole hypercar experience in terms of spec. But what we do is we have our own powertrain. And we mix it with a load of other engineering solutions. That means they don't need quite so much upkeep as you would get with an F1 car. You don't need 25 people there, and all the trucks and all the kit. You can run it with 2 people and go and enjoy yourself on track days rather than worrying about the wallet. You can be out on circuit.
That's phenomenal, because like for Formula One fans, they obviously see all of the teams. You know, there'll be 20, 30 people in and around the garage and on the car. And actually, what you've been able to do is re-engineer that car so that 2 people can start it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've done the same. You know, we've both been around F1 through our career, and you know what it's like and the amount of kit and infrastructure they take. Having done that ourselves, all the core staff here are ex-F1 staff. So having been and done that, trying to take the headaches away from it, but also maintain the authenticity so that owners and clients of ours that come in through TDF Works as well get an authentic F1 experience, but without having to worry about, as you say, massive factories and 1,000 people and all the kit that goes with it.
So that's the TDF1. You've just mentioned TDF Works. Excuse me. Tell me a little bit more about TDF Works.
TDF Works is similar, but kind of the other side of the business. So one is its own program. TDF Works is it doesn't have to be F1 in Works. It can be any sort of program, whether it be GT, LMP. Doesn't even necessarily need to be a race car. Anything that's a bespoke product or one-off
Okay.
We do a lot of development work with various different people that are looking to achieve sort of higher end or some motorsport solutions. But for instance, all our V10 clients are in TDF Works. We do procurement and sales through TDF Works. And there's a lot more flexibility in there. If people come to us looking for a V10 car, a V8 car, a car all the way back to the 50s, we can look after it within Works and run it on circuit or fly it around the world or wherever it would need to be.
Amazing. And then your TDF Precision business, what's the focus for that one?
Precision was born realistically out of trying to support the other programs. Obviously, we have to create a lot of bespoke or one-off parts. So everything from scanning of cars, which is something we're really pushing at the moment, through the design process, prototyping process, into end-use parts. We've got machining in-house, and all of those components are all in-house, so we can control that through every stage, and not just for ourselves. We do it for external clients as well.
Cool. And so we touched on a little bit in terms of your Formula One history. Do you want to take us back and like where did your career or passion even start with motorsport?
I don't really know where it was born out of. My dad was racing a little bit when I was a kid, but way before I can remember anything. So I don't really know where it came from. Watched it on the TV as a kid, I guess, and then I started pestering to go karting, which eventually went and did. We had some good success, won our British National Championship, and at that point as a kid, well, this is cool. I'm going to be a racing driver. This is easy. And then fast realized that it's not as easy as that. You need a load of budget. So when we ran out of budget, I started mechanicking for friends in karts, and was just doing it to stay kind of in the loop and stay relevant and hope that someone gave me a go one day.
Yeah.
And then, made a jump to, got an opportunity with an F3 team at Silverstone called Promotechny at the time. They were based, Unit 19, I think it was. That's trying to drag my memory up there. But anyway, they were based on the circuit. And that was kind of my first opportunity to start working on race cars. And from there went to high tech and then stepped up into F1 from there, essentially. And worked with Mercedes, and it just kind of went from there, just kind of one thing to the next, and won the championship, as I say, with high tech and with Marco. And it was kind of, didn't really feel like work. It was just like, this is cool, playing with toys. So just kind of carried on at it.
So you and I met when you were running in F3, and those wonderful years when high tech did win the championship. And you know, I do a lot of coaching and training with engineers and engineering businesses and that kind of stuff. And the thing I love about it is the racing mentality. If they've got that heritage, and we kind of, you know, race day is on Sunday, and you know, the deadlines don't move in motor racing, right? You're either on the grid for the race or you're not on the grid. Whereas I think in business, our deadlines can quite often shift, and you know, things kind of evolve and change, and much more in a way that it doesn't happen in motorsport. Can you describe what that sort of racing culture was like, and being part of those teams, whether it was Mercedes or whether it was high tech, or even, you know, Promotechny, just going in, picking up spanners, learning on the job? And, you know, can you describe what that's like?
Yeah, it is a bit of a unique world. And I think I've had my eyes open to the fact that it was a bit of a bubble when you sort of have to expand a bit. In my role now, I have to have a much broader view of things. But yeah, it is quite process driven. It's driven by results ultimately, at the racetrack, or whether that be a result on getting to the end of the day and getting out on time to go home and have dinner. It's about delivering to the highest level. And when you get to, you know, F3 like we were, or F1, the car has to go out and it has to be right. Whether it's all night, you have to be there or not. It can't leave in a not right state. Even when it's been in the wall, it has to go out, set up right. They maybe don't always look the greatest on the outside if they have been in the wall, but underneath, and for the driver and for you as a mechanic, you need to know when you send that car that, one, it's safe, and two, it's right. And then when you get a result, it's much more rewarding. And I think trying to bring that element of things into what we're doing has been a challenge, because it's we're not necessarily working solely with motorsport businesses now, or certainly motorsport people have been around motorsport forever. But yeah, that process driven ideology, I guess, is the big driving factor for me.
Yeah. And, moving from mechanic into effectively running a business, spinning, all of those plates, wearing multiple hats, whether it's, investment management, suppliers, people management, customers, managing expectations. Is it still fun, or are you just wanting to play with the toys?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's been a really interesting shift. I've always had an interest in business anyway, so being able to sort of move in that direction, but be lucky enough to do it in something that I'm passionate about with motorsport is great. It does come with its challenges and a lot of learning. I still like to get on the tools when I can, and spend some time in the workshop with the boys and have a bit of a laugh, but it's not always possible. So it is a balancing act, but it's been enjoyable so far.
And is it also a little treat, because obviously you were a karter, are a racing driver when you can, that actually quite often you're the test driver for these wonderful pieces of kit, that people trust you to take their cars out on track and do the final checks on them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's like the ultimate goal, right? I was lucky enough to race cars a little bit not so long ago, and we won the championship for that as well, and it sort of just feeds your enthusiasm to keep going. But yeah, to be able to do the development on the cars we have along with a couple of other people has been really good, and to have the trust from quite a few of our works, or all, to be honest, everybody that we've had here, to be able to do development on the car, do shakedown work with the car, is a bit of an honor, really, to be able to do that and to drive things that I watched when I was a kid. And yeah, certainly to be able to deliver my experience from a mechanical side as well as a driving side. It's a bit weird, really, when you look at it from where it was, when I was starting out in mechanicking and that kind of stuff, to sort of go full circle of worked in F1 and then still get to drive F1 cars now is a bit mad.
Yeah, it is a bit mad. But like you say, motorsport it is a bit of a bubble. It is a very unique industry. It can actually be quite a small and insular type of industry, but the companies that you're working with, you currently are working with some of the Silverstone technology cluster companies like Silverstone Composites. Again, that is a husband and wife run business with Marcus and Gemma. So how important are the relationships with those types of Silverstone technology cluster businesses or suppliers that you work with?
They're huge for us. I mean, we looked at it in a different way. As I say earlier, we went out to create partnerships. We are very good at what we do, and the guys here are very good at what they do. End-to-end solutions at precision, building the cars. We are very good at that. And there are other people that are very good at other things that we don't do, like painting cars, or like you say, with Marcus and the guys and girls there at Silverstone, they are fantastic at what they do with carbon. And for us, going out, building those relationships, and working with them as they have grown, as well as we've grown, working out our processes and working together it's really rewarding. And to work with people that are at the level that you're looking for is not always the easiest thing to find, but certainly there are some businesses up there that are turning out the work that you would expect, and likewise we can then present the end product that hopefully represents all their hard work when it finally all comes together,
that still retains its authenticity, that still has that kind of heritage, particularly with the works cars. I imagine that is really, really important. When you were going through that transition from mechanic to running this business, or actually multiple businesses, right, is there anyone that you look for in terms of mentorship, or is even people in the public eye or people that you've worked with before? Do you now mentor again in your own organization? Is that something that features for you?
I think I've always, as I said earlier, I've always been interested in business. So I guess you kind of pick things up along the way. Been working with some investors that have been really supportive through all of it. And again, managing that relationship and how we go about that relationship has been a challenge as well. But I think I do watch podcasts, and I watch a lot of business related stuff on TV. And I think for me, I've always been one to sort of, rightly or wrongly, sometimes forge my own kind of path with that. So I tend to listen and try and pick things up, and you'll try things and sometimes they don't work. But but you can quite quickly adapt to that. And we like to be quite reactive as a business anyway. So for me personally, it's about trying things and not being scared to try things. And it's the same with the guys here. Like we're expanding quite quickly, and we have new people coming in the team, and we've just gone through a process where we've gone on to all new IT, which is horrendously boring for me because IT is not my thing, but it's been massive for the business and allowing everybody to have that opportunity to have an input in that and try things. And if they don't work, it doesn't matter. We'll just try a different way, or we'll learn from it and make it the way that we want it or it should be.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing really, is we're so process driven with the cars, and they have to be right, and we have to go through that process. That the what we surround ourselves with in the business wants to be driven by the guys, and them having a bit of freedom on their space and how they work.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because small businesses, or kind of smaller businesses, and particularly a lot of your colleagues have got motorsport background as well, right?
Yeah.
They haven't necessarily come from aerospace or automotive or whatever, but actually in those small businesses, if you can get creative and really challenge what you're doing in terms of processes, or even how you're laying out the spanners, that doesn't work for me, or that's not the most efficient use of, if we have to fix this bit of the car at the testing and all that kind of stuff. But that to me feels like a very motorsport mentality, and kind of giving people the space within the boundaries, obviously, to be creative where they can is really valuable, to let the business expand and grow, and people take ownership of what they're doing as well. So your passion clearly is coming through, and I imagine if you're letting your fellow employees kind of show their passion, they turn up to work better. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, you have to come and speak to them. I hope so. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, and we do things to try and, there's a competitive nature with all of us, regardless, just because of the things we're into. Everybody here is into motorsport, whether they've worked in it or not. Obviously, the core staff and the senior staffing team are all F1, so we can all impart that level of, okay, this is not necessarily the solution, but this is how it needs to be at the end, and we need to work to this,
standard
piece. Yeah, absolutely. But we're also learning from other people coming in about, why don't you do this? And we've done this in the non-bubble world, and we've got a simulator here that we run a simulation challenge in with the guys, where they can sort of loosely based around the Grand Prix weekends, where they can all hop in and have a whirl. And I think it just ties the team together nicely. There's not many of us, but being able to be competitive, but then go back and do creative stuff, and ultimately end up with a product that it's the tangible piece at the end. You can kind of all step back and look at it and go, yeah, actually, that's cool. We made that.
Yeah, we made that. Blood, sweat and tears. Test and learn. We made that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking of Grand Prix, you took one of your TDF ones to the Silverstone Grand Prix recently, didn't you? You were on track.
We didn't run the TDF one, annoyingly, only due to just the way it fell. But we were in Melbourne with the TDF one, and we did a client delivery and launch around the Grand Prix week. But we were at Silverstone with a works car, making some noise and trying to keep the crowd happy.
And what have you got coming up?
A whole heap of stuff, of which most of it I can't talk about. But we have got some stuff going on around. We've got another client delivery later in the year. We've got some stuff going on around the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which will be an interesting one. And there's quite a lot of hype building for that now. And we've got some other bits and pieces going on around Abu Dhabi to see the season out, with a little smattering of a few other events here and there.
Right. Yeah, the Vegas one, I think that's going to be Grand Prix on steroids, right? It's going to be pretty big and pretty wild anyway. So to be part of that big picture will be, kind of history making, hopefully. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got partners just up the road based at Thermal. O'Gara Motorsport are just up there, so they're going to be doing some bits as well. And so between the whole thing, I think the community is going to kind of descend on California for a month and see how it goes. Amazing. And maybe take a couple of cruises down Highway 1 if you can get yourself something fun. In one of these would be great. Yeah, sure, no problem. It's got brake lights, right? It can have. Optional extras. Good. Yeah, absolutely. I'm asking all of our guests on this podcast, how were the COVID years for you and also for TDF?
almost seems like a long time ago now, even though it's to go on for a long time. Realistically for us, we essentially see ourselves as a bit of a startup as of the beginning of 2020. That was when I took my position here, and the business sort of had a massive shift into what it is now.
Yeah.
And so, just started to get settled, and then COVID turned up. But actually, I think for us, it was almost a blessing in disguise. We had some things that we wanted to change and address, and things that I wanted to look at for the business moving forward. And it allowed us a little bit of breathing room to get on top of that. And for me to get a real idea on the sort of direction and the picture for the business for the following sort of 3-5 years.
Yeah.
And so that was quite a nice time really to get that done without the stresses and strains of events and being away and a lot of the things that tie you up for a lot of time, although they look glam and it's great and you're on a plane here, there and everywhere. Actually being able to get into the nitty gritty and really drill into the business would have been quite difficult. So it kind of set us up quite well in that respect. On the flip side, not being able to get to those events, not being able to meet people, not being able to start building where we are now with the huge amount of partnerships and things we have, it kind of held us back a little bit. But I think everybody has the same story. So we came out of it stronger, and we've been building ever since. We sold the first TDF one in that in the COVID process, which was interesting over the phone and emails and lots of backwards and forwards and Zoom calls and all the rest of it. But building those relationships kind of opened our eyes to a different way of doing it, I guess. Rather than hopping on planes, we were able to start building that, and it allowed us to build a big deck of assets that we can use to show people what we do without physically being able to show them.
Yeah, and the deck will be in the show notes for our listeners if you're interested in maybe purchasing your own TDF one, if you've got the luxury to do so. But those COVID years, it was a big handbrake for lots of businesses, and actually having that time to sort of reflect, really think about the vision, really think about what are we doing here, why are we doing it, where are our customers, what's the partnerships. You talk a lot about partnerships, and I think that's really key to kind of how you want to be developing this business. You've got partnerships in California with Agara and in Australia as well, and it is not often you get that time to stop and really start challenging, why are we doing all of this kind of stuff. And once you get that foundation down, then you can get running again, right? And stuff started opening up, and things are really sort of moving quite quickly by the sounds of it for TDF at the moment.
Yeah, like I say, as you just said there, we've got in California, one in Australia, we've got stuff coming in the Middle East and the Far East. And I think it allowed us to look at, okay, we are this business based in Bedford currently, and how do we go about getting ourselves in a different area to everybody else? Motorsport products are available. People can buy them. You can go and buy race cars if you like. You can go and buy high-end road cars. A lot of the manufacturers are doing track-focused cars, the Valkyrie and those kind of programs. So we were just looking at a different way to go about this, and we want to be able to have a network ultimately that globally allows all of our clients to be able to go to circuits like Thermal or the Bend down in Australia or various other places that TDF events can look after. But ultimately there's someone on the ground within their area or region in the world that they can pick the phone up and go, I've got this problem, or I want to go and do this event, or I want to go and do that, where they can do it. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is, because they'll be speaking to someone that's relatively local.
Yeah.
Emails, and we can then pull all the clientele together, put on events, and be able to take everybody to Japan or everybody in to go to Spa and go and do an event, and have this global support network where individually, if there are cars out in Australasia, they can get flown in and we can use our partners to do that, and vice versa, going the other way, and trying to connect everybody so that there's a global hub for buying, selling, running, looking after these cars, and like a social hub for everybody as well, I guess. Yeah. Ultimately will sort of bubble out of that.
Yeah, and community is really important, right? And it shows up in motorsport quite a lot, and it feels like that you are building this global community, whether it's with your clients or with your partners. You mentioned at the moment you're currently in Bedford. is Silverstone Technology Cluster, is the park of interest to you as a business? Do you like what you see there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the vision realistically is to be based on site there. It is the home of British motorsport. It's where I started, so it'd be nice to come all the way back round and come back there. But more than anything, there's a great deal of top businesses there that we work with or aspire to work with, and I think there's a lot that we can provide in the opposite direction, from a designing, manufacturing, efficiency or an ethos point of view that we bring to things, that, you know, may or may not benefit some of the businesses up there. But ultimately, as Silverstone grows, I think it would be it's definitely the right place for us to be.
Yeah. When you look back over your career to date, is there anything that you kind of wish you'd known or could tell your younger self?
Other than enjoy it, really. I think there's probably some times of it that skipped by, that I was just kind of working, and you assume it's normal life. From being 15, I've been traveling, flying around the place, working on race cars, and that's everyday normal life. But actually it kind of isn't normal life at all. I mean, like, even now we're in a workshop full of F1 cars, which you forget about. And I think certainly there were things that went past that I was like, nah, that was okay, but it was actually probably more than that. And to not worry about it too much, which I never really did, because I've always just enjoyed it. Never really seemed like work. But I did get poorly, and that was the reason that I came out of F1, and I had a time where I was getting well again, and it also made me appreciate what I had been doing and want to go back to motorsport. And I think that was probably the sort of biggest time that was like, okay, no, this is where I want to be and what I want to do, and to keep pushing in that direction.
Yeah. I think, you know, I have a very similar experience. My SRO years, you know, 25 race weeks a year, getting on and off planes, going to all these different locations. Effectively, your office is in a truck in a car park, or, you know, you're stood on another grid with, you know, 300, 400, 500 people, and that is your normality, right? That is your office, and it isn't normal for everyone. But actually sort of soaking in the good bits and kind of stopping and looking around every so often and going, oh my God, I'm driving Formula One cars, or, you know, which is effectively what you have an opportunity to do at the moment. It is an odd little circus, I think, and quite addictive.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The now, especially, you know, you go out. For me, obviously, it's work, and it's important to look after and to deliver what I say I'm going to deliver on. So you go and drive the car, you run up and down a runway, or you run around a circuit, and you know, it's like you get out, little spring change here or tire pressure changes or whatever, and you're focused on all that. It's only later in the day you sort of take your lid off and have some lunch, and you're like, it's a pretty ridiculous morning. And I've had friends that have gone to F1, people we've worked with that have then made that step. Some of the younger guys that have been through here have then made that step to the teams.
Yeah.
All of them, I just say, like, just look up a bit. My first Monaco, sat there really busy, making sure the car was right. We'd had a long weekend anyway, because we had a shunt in practice, and we were just...
Do you want to name any names? Who shunted in practice?
Rosberg, big time. YouTube it. He made an absolute hash of it on Saturday.
Rosberg.
Yeah, exactly. But like, come the race day, I sat there. We were all busy around the car, and you don't really look up, and you see bits on the TV, or people send you photos from watching, and there's all these people on the grid, and you would never know any of them were there. And it's just, like you say, taking that breath and actually looking around sometimes and realizing it's not all in the roof you're under or the car you're in or whatever. There's like a bigger picture going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be like, I mean, it's clear you're really passionate about what you do, and, you know, kind of having that when you were unwell and forced to kind of stop doing that particular job and really recollect on, you know, what is available to me, and having the clarity to stand by. Absolutely, motorsport is where I want to be. I want to be playing with racing cars, playing with stuff that's upcoming in terms of innovation, you know, dealing with the global, not dealing with, but working with the global community, and really building those partnerships. You know, it quite often we can just get up and go to work. And actually the COVID years, or if you're in a forced stop, it is the time to reflect and go, do do you know what, this is what I really want and this is the stuff I'm going to go for. And it makes it so much more enjoyable, even in the hard times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what it is. Like, I'm fortunate to have found something that I love to do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people look at things as I should be doing this, or this is what other people will think is the right thing. But I don't think it matters as long as you enjoy what you're doing, or if there's something you want to do sort of as and when you can, because it's easy to look on the internet. Everyone just goes, oh, just go after what you want. Reality is you can't always do that.
Yeah.
But if you've got a passion to want to head in that direction, we get a lot of emails from people asking, how do I get into motorsport? Or, you know, I'm just coming out of school and I want to do this, or, you know, I've been working for 30 years and now I want to change. How do I get to motorsport? And I will always try and respond, even if it's not necessarily the most useful, but ultimately you've got to try and do it as and when you can, and contact people and just push for what you can.
Yeah. So tell me, what was your first car?
First car was one of the best cars I think I probably ever had, really. It was a Citroen Saxo. It was bright blue. I was desperate to not have a 1.2 or 1 litre, so it was a 1.4, but it looked like the 1.6. It was the best thing ever. But yeah, I was just I couldn't help myself, really. But that was even now, because you never see them anymore. We were talking about it in the workshop. That's one car that you don't see anymore that was actually a complete hoot back in the day.
Yeah, and I think the first one, that first taste of freedom and independence, and, you know, kind of, particularly if you can have something that's kind of cool and kind of fun and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and that's what happens with cars, isn't it? They end up having this sort of visceral connection to the driver and the experience. It's much more than bits of material and carbon fiber and nuts and bolts, right? It's the memory, it's the, you know, cruising along the A road, wherever you may be, you know, kind of so important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way to start creating memories. And for me, it was the easy piece to start going to work and back. So I could get to work and back easy. I started working up at Silverstone. It wasn't a problem. And you can start sort of, like, say, growing up, I guess. Not that I ever really did, but like the idea, right, is that you start growing up.
No, I'm still trying to work out what I'm going to do when I grow up. So I'll let you know. Yeah. Super. Well, thank you very much, James. Is there anything else you want to add before we close out this episode?
I mean, other than I think this is the most grown-up conversation we've probably ever had. It's been thanks for having us on.
Great. Well, lovely to see you. Lovely to find out more about TDF. As I said, all of the information is going to be in the show notes. If you want to get in contact with James, you now know what he looks like or what he sounds like. So yeah, make those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Cheers, James. That's it. So we will see you next time on the Inside Silverstone podcast. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and please give us a 5-star review.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst. To listen to more episodes, please visit insidesilverstone.co.uk. Please note neither Fiona or Chris work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Technology Cluster or Silverstone Circuit.